Hey, how's it going? Yeah, I just wanted to make a quick video about ambiverts. Um, so, if you take in the MBTI, you have a four-letter code that represents your personality. So you're either an I or an E as the first one, and that's introversion or extroversion. But you probably noticed that you are not always acting like an introvert and not always acting like an extrovert, and that's because um, MBTI is only uh, a simple representation of psychological types, and psychological types were first talked about by Carl Jung, and he said that there are 8 different psychological functions that you do, and four basic types, and the four are oriented either outwards or inwards, so towards the subject or towards the object. So, like, extroverts are oriented to the external world, and introverts are oriented inside their head. And so you probably, if you think that you're an ambivert, it's probably because you're developing your second function, because everybody has a dominant function as their first psychological function. For me, as an INTJ, my first function is introverted intuition. So, and my second function is extroverted thinking. So whatever your first function is, introverted or extroverted, your second one is the opposite. And so as you develop your second function, you're going to feel more like an ambivert. But actually, there's research done by a neuroscientist named Dario Nardi, who's famous for his personality type research, and he found that the brain activity that you can measure with like a, I think, functional MRI, it shows similar patterns for the same people with the same personality type, but as they get older, towards like 50 years old or so, the patterns of activation actually look more like not the opposite side. So the opposite of the INTJ, if you were to take the 4 functions and flip them, reverse them all, reverse the order, you would get an ESFP. It's the same as flipping all 4 letters in the MBTI code. But as you get older, you don't become your opposite type. You don't get more similar. Your brain activity actually looks more like the opposite type, but with the same attitude. So if you're introverted dominant, then when you're older, your brain activity starts to look like the introverted dominant of your opposite personality type. So for INTJ, the opposite is ESFP. So the brain patterns will look more like ISFP. So it's like, instead of taking your functions and then putting them all on the same level and sort of, kind of becoming more like an ambivert where you're focusing equally on introverted and extroverted, when you develop more, it's actually your third function that is the same orientation as your first function, and it's like putting it up closer next to your first function. So it's kind of like parallel, kind of like that. And so you don't even become, like, it's super rare for somebody to switch personality types. I don't think it really happens unless somebody, undergoes some kind of traumatic experience, or like some surgery, or some brain damage. I don't know. Because your brain has to have a consistent way of viewing reality, or otherwise you would be lost or maybe schizophrenic or something. It's like you're building some kind of structure inside your head that represents reality, that lets you function as a human being. And if you try to build it out of multiple materials, you're going to have some kind of joint, some kind of separation, some kind of place where it splits. And because all the psychological functions are incomprehensible to each other. You can't really understand feeling through logic. You can't really understand intuition through sensing, because these are things that happen in different parts of the brain, and there might be an overlap, but they are unique psychological processes. So, but a lot of people, they start to believe that they're ambiverts because they took some quick personality test a long time ago, and they assumed that that it described everything they needed to know about themselves, because it was more than they ever thought about themselves. It went into more depth than they had before. So they're like, okay, I'm an extrovert. All right, yeah, that makes sense. Yeah, I love hanging out with people, stuff like that. But and then after a while, they realize that they have introverted functions. Like, they have a need to be introverted sometimes. Like, an ENFP might be physically exhausted and mentally exhausted after like a whole day or maybe 2 days straight. I don't know what ENFPs do. I don't know what they do. But maybe after a super long time of just extroverted intuiting, they will inevitably, I mean, extroverts, they don't get energy from interacting with the external world, which, by the way, includes objects, not just people. They release energy, and it sends a signal to their brain to be more active. Like when you stop showing them objects and things moving, their brain activity literally decreases, because it doesn't value introversion. It values extroversion. But it doesn't just create energy out of nowhere. It's not like you can get two extroverts and then it's like some kind of positive feedback loop and then the energy explodes into like some, supernova. It is a limited resource, and so after a while they will have to do introverted stuff. They won't be able to know if they're hungry if they never focused on how they felt, or their physical sensations. And the sensations in your brain are physical sensations, and that's why introverted sensors, that's why, all physical sensations are related to introverted sensing, because it really is introverted sensing, just how you feel about things internal to you. This is totally off topic, but sensing, all the functions, they can be oriented externally or internally, but they have the same basic nature. What else? Basically, you realize that you have introverted needs, and then you start to question whether the test was accurate, because it didn't explain everything about you when you thought that it had incorrectly. So you start to think, you know what, I think this is important about me, so I'm going to tell people that I'm an ambivert. And then you get mocked by all the personality community. You can't be an ambivert. I don't know. I don't care. I don't think they do that. Anyway. And the crazy thing is, by age 50, around, middle age, whether you're an introvert or an extrovert is 70% determined by your genes. That doesn't leave a lot of room for your own personal development choices. Because think of, the remaining 30%, did that happen before you're even 4 years old? And genes do activate at different times in your life, which is why the IQ studies of whether it's inherited have different results depending on what the age of the subjects are. Because at age 25 you might have a gene that activates that, makes you more intelligent in some way, and then maybe at age 30, I don't know, I'm not a geneticist, I'm not sure exactly how it works, but maybe there's something environmental when your mom was pregnant with you, and or before you were 2, when you're developing with your environment. I mean, a lot of it is very dependent on your environment, I'm sure, before you're even consciously aware that you have a personality to develop. So, yeah, that is all I wanted to say about ambiverts. I think they pretty much don't exist, and it's totally fine. You have one dominant function, and it's not. It shouldn't be your goal to become like every other personality type. That's what the other personality types are for. If you are an INTJ, focus on just being the best INTJ. Because then when people need you to, come up with some kind of analysis in some system, whatever it is, they'll need you to be, they won't need you to be an extrovert, they'll need you to be an INTJ. So, and same with, every personality type. They have something unique to offer. Yeah, it's your own choice though. You can analyze the economy, your interests, and maybe you have a career that you would personally love to do, but it requires you to develop more of an extroverted side. Then you'll want to focus on that. But you don't have to. You don't have to feel guilty about not feeling a desire to be constantly talking to people. That is not required to be a good or effective person in any way. So there are many options, diverse paths. All right. Thank you for watching, and see you later.